Tech Talk Tuesday. I'm on the floor. Hey everybody. I wanted to talk to y'all. Charlie. Hey Charlie. Hey Alan. Alex. I had one day, it was funny you guys, I think it was 117, Tech Talk number 117, that I had laryngitis and I couldn't really talk, and Jackie did it for me. She did a great job. Hey Charlie. Hey Steven. Let me look at these names for a minute. Harry, Ken, Mike, George, Joe. Good to see you guys, man. Thank you all for tuning in. I want to tell you though, I think it was Tech Talk 117 that I had a cold really bad, and a little bit left. I got 1 or 2 days left of the nasal sound because my head's been stopped up for 2 or 3 weeks. Hey Sam. But Jackie did a great job on Tech Talk 117, but I lost the recording, and so it didn't really get any airtime. So somebody said that maybe Charlie Edmondson didn't show up, so they were thinking about calling 911. I know if you watch Tech Talk, I say that, but Charlie Edmondson has been watching. I don't think he's missed one. I think this is 118 of them, or 119 of these in a row now that Charlie has tuned in on, and I'm thankful for that. Hey all y'all, guys and girls, my friends. Hey Ricky, hey Greg, Jeff. Man, that's a hero right there. Jeff Foster, y'all. That is a track prepper deluxe, man. He does a great job. Hey Steve, hey Jim. Thank you, Jim. Signed up early today. Look at you go. I wanted to say thank you all again. I was there, Charlie was there. But see, since I didn't post the recording, somebody thought that maybe Charlie didn't show up, and it made me miss the episode because I had to call 911. But that's not what happened. But anyway, if Charlie misses one, all 500, 1,000, how many ever you folks will know that Charlie will know, and the State Patrol will know that we are looking for Charlie. So thank you for signing in, Charlie. You're welcome, Jeff. You deserve it. There's Anna Mail. Oh, Chad and Charles. Some good friends, man. Some long-time followers, good friends. Hey, Paul. And please don't get your feelings hurt if I don't say your name, because there's something with my brain, and I don't know if you're like this, but if I read your names, I see a picture in my mind of your face or your motorcycle or how I know you, Scott, Platt, all you guys, and it takes away from what I'm trying to tell you. So I just kind of skip around when I'm reading your name, but I'm proud to see those names on here. Did I lose it on purpose? Yeah, I did. I have to stop reading the page, stop reading the names in order for me to concentrate on what I'm talking about. And I don't know if that's cause of what, but I think that might be how the human brain works. Hey, Cedric, thank you all for checking in. Thank you all for signing up. But I'm going to talk about some interesting facts today. This is Tech Talk number 119, and I'm going to move over to the board. But I wanted to say hi in person, and you can hear my voice is almost back. I'm about 89, 90% back. When it's perfect, when my voice is perfect, it's not even really that great. It's just a southern redneck country boy voice. I'm sorry. Rick, Travis, man, some of these names make me smile. Some of these names make me like, wow. And some of these names make me really grin and be happy. But I'm thankful for you guys' attention. And let's switch over to the board and let you look at what I'm talking about. I'm going to let this down to here. And I am, hi, y'all. Chris, Clinton, Darren. Hey, Darren. Shane. Good to see you, Shane. Greg, King. Preach on, man. Usual. Yeah. Hey, Blackboard taking notes. Yeah, Eric. Man, when I see your name, I see burritos in my mind. Hey, Jason. Hey, Billy. Hey, Dave. Okay, quit apologizing for being me. That's a great tip. Okay, I'm me, and I'm thankful that I'm me. I really am. I am thankful that I have followers and information, and the good Lord bless me with an ability to share it with you guys, and I'm thankful for that. So there you go. I'm done with that part. Okay, if you'll notice here, it says number 119. Now, that is also amazing, y'all, that I have been able to do this for 119 weeks in a row. And I know some of you that miss math like I did, that's 52 of these is a whole year. So I think what's 52 and 52 is 104 is like 2 years. So we're working on our 3rd year now in a row without missing one. Even though 117 was a little bit goofy, I still made it. Hey, Kevin, I'll catch up with you soon, my friend. stay in touch. Billy, some of you guys have created some great projects and have some great things you're working on that I'm very interested in, and I love hearing about it. I love sharing, and I left this on from last week. This is 405-315. This is interesting because of what I'm going to talk about flywheel inertia today. And also, I would like to, as standard quote every week, my daily default is, this is what I think I know. Only that, okay? This is not, don't say that it's right because George said so, but I'm going to give you my opinion of why I think it's true, because I ran over enough parts, blew up enough parts, broke enough stuff, got broke enough times. Me and Jackie rode the roller coaster of almost had enough money, spent it all, almost had enough money, spent it all, and the roller coaster, I'll draw a picture of that because it's really cool. I noticed this the other day. So a roller coaster, you know, it has its... Okay, quit flopping around, George. Roller coaster has, you go up, and then you ride it down, then you ride it up, and then you ride it down. And it almost ends up looking, it has a hysteresis to it, which is the highs and the lows and the difference between them. And I'm going to talk about the finances right now. This is when we didn't have enough, but God always gave us enough, but we didn't think we had enough. And then we had a lot, and then we had almost enough, and then we had a lot, then we had almost enough. But what happens if you do this for 40 years in racing, like Jackie and I have done, this roller coaster gets really long this way, and the highs and the lows end up being 100 of them. So over a long period of time, 100 highs and lows will look like this. Let's say 40 years. And the reason it looks so vague like this is because if you get long enough with time, the highs are not as high and the lows are not as low, and you just sort of, it's like a string, and you stretch it out, and the highs and the lows look less. But I'm telling you something, these highs were great times, these lows weren't great times, these highs were great times, these lows weren't great times. But I'm going to tell you what they did for us, is they taught us so much. We learned so much being here and being here. And hopefully you guys, if you experience this, it's not always looking like this. Maybe it goes up and down some. All of us live through that. But that's not what Tech Talk Tuesday is about. It's not about our financial roller coaster that we've been on. But I wanted to share that. Here's where I want to start. And listen, you guys, I'm winging it. This is coming right off the cuff. I don't have notes. I'm going to just tell you what I think I know about a couple things. One is flywheel inertia. As we read books and watch the internet all through our career, we read where lightweight flywheels, lightweight rods, lightweight clutches, lightweight, all the parts in the engine, the rods, the pistons, the wrist pins, everything has to be super lightweight. That's what we learn. But in reality, it depends on the firing order and how many cylinders you have. Say that back. It depends on how many cylinders and the firing order of those multiple cylinders. When I was growing up and I was a teenager, I worked in construction, and we had a air compressor that we towed behind our pickup truck when we had to run the jackhammer. It was a giant air compressor on wheels. This is what it looked like to me. I'm gonna try and get this in camera. It had a single cylinder, and it had a crankcase, and it had, I'm gonna turn it 90 degrees, single cylinder and a crankcase. It had a crankshaft in it, and it had these two giant flywheels. Single cylinder diesel air compressor. Now I'm in the picture. And the flywheels were, like unbelievable heavy. I bet you the flywheels weighed 300 pounds a piece. And this thing would run on diesel. And the only way you could start it was you had a little lever on the spark plug over here. You guys might have seen one of these before. And then you had to put a hand crank on it. And here I am, 16 years old, 17 years old. They would get me to grab this hand crank, and I wasn't even strong enough to rotate this thing. And we would just get it going and get it going and get it going and get it going and get it going. And the flywheels were so heavy and so massive. If they didn't weigh 300 pounds a piece, it was close. But think, this thing it was built on a trailer. It had wheels and tires on the ground, and it had a trailer hitch on it, and we pulled it behind the pickup truck. And what I learned that day about this was this ran on a little diesel fuel, And this handle here, it was quick detach. Boy, you better get it out of there before you light that spark plug. But anyway, we would go, jerk the handle out, and this thing would be going, whoop, 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 and then we would try to light it. And then it would go pop, 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 and it would run and run and run, and then you couldn't stop it. So when we would turn it off at the end of the day after we were running the jackhammer all day, we would unhook the fuel, unhook the Energizer, we would unhook it, and it would go, and if you got in the way, you don't have enough limbs, your arms, your legs, your hands, your fingers, this crank pulley, this hand starter thing, you better get it out of the way. And if any of you guys have ever hand cranked an airplane where you grab the propeller and spin it by hand, you better get the heck out of the way of that propeller if that engine fires. But what I learned here was this diesel generator took 720 degrees of rotation to make one firing stroke. And the flywheel, we would have an intake stroke, that was 180 degrees. We would have a compression stroke, that was 180 degrees. We'd have a power stroke, that was 180 degrees. Then we have an exhaust stroke, and that was 180 degrees. So when that one cylinder, this crankshaft, that giant 300-pound flywheel would have to go around twice for this thing to make one power stroke. So it would go suck all the fuel and air in, squeeze all the air and fuel, light it, and go bang, and then pump the fuel and air out the exhaust. Then you would suck in air and fuel, then you would squeeze the air and fuel, then you would light it, and it would go bang, and then 180 degrees to get all the air and fuel out. That was 720 degrees, and I know I've done this many times, 720 degrees, just for one power stroke. One power stroke. Now, some of you may have seen me drawing or showing a picture of this flywheel assembly for a Harley that was cheese cut out, man. Windows. Because of this experience, and because I lived through this, if this had been a 4-cylinder, a 2-cylinder, or a 3-cylinder, it might have had less flywheel inertia, because instead of having 720 degrees, let's say it's a 2-cylinder. There's a lot of air compressors out there that are 2-cylinders. You could run a 2-cylinder one with less flywheel. Instead of a 300-pound flywheel, you could have a 150-pound flywheel, and it would suck air and fuel in. It would squeeze the air and fuel. It would light it. It would go bang, and at the same time, you had another cylinder that was doing the same thing. But if it was like a Harley where it had one rod pin for 2 rods, 1 crank, it had 450 degrees where the rear would fire, and then you'd go 405 degrees, then the front would fire, and then it would go all the way back around 315 degrees, and the rear would fire, and then it would go all the way back around 405 degrees, and the front would fire. That's how a V-twin works. Now, the only way this flywheel, this crankshaft, keeps rotating is not because of how many power strokes it has. If you had a V-twin, you would have 2 power strokes. 2 power strokes out of 2 revolutions. Now, that means since you've got 2 power strokes, you can run less flywheel inertia. Now, back where I was going for, the things we read about and learn about is 4-cylinders, like a Suzuki, Kawasaki, Yamaha, Honda. They have a crankshaft that has 2 cylinders up, 2 cylinders down, and they fire every 180 degrees. So this flywheel, looking at it on the end, it would go a firing stroke, another 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 firing stroke. Every other one was also compression, power, exhaust, intake, and there was 4 of them sharing the load. So this flywheel inertia, these flywheels, each one of these will be flywheels. They're all pressed together. Each one of these will be flywheels. Yeah, Michael said that compressor would kick your butt. It is a true story. That thing would hurt you, man. A lot of people went to the hospital. It would break your leg, your arm, your fingers, your hands, whatever, if you got in the way of it. But I wanted you guys to know that this crankshaft, a 4-cylinder, 4-stroke, 4-cylinder, 4-stroke, Honda, Kawasaki, Yamaha, Honda, a Honda car, a Datsun, a Nissan, a Yugo, whatever, a 4-cylinder, inline 4 needs less flywheel inertia just to keep it running at idle. Get a V8, y'all. Go and look at the V8. The V8 has every 90 degrees a power stroke, 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 a power stroke. It has a power stroke every 90 degrees. So this thing can use way less flywheel because there's no inertia needed to keep this rolling. Not much inertia. Go back to the single cylinder. Y'all seen the Hondas and the motocross bikes now, the singles, 450cc, 250cc, singles, like a motocross bike. 4-stroke. It has pretty good flywheel in it because it's a 1-cylinder 4-stroke. That means when the piston goes down, it sucks it full of air and fuel. It squeezes it, lights it, makes power, makes exhaust. It takes 720 degrees or 2 rotations to make 1 power stroke. 1 power stroke takes 720 degrees of rotation. And you know 1 turn, 1 rotation is 360. But on a single cylinder 4-stroke, you only get two of the 4 strokes done in 1 turn. You can have an intake and you can have a compression, or you can have a power and an exhaust, but out of 360 degrees, which is 1 rotation, you only get 1 power stroke. 1 power stroke. Why am I going over this and talking to you about it such in detail? Because I want to tell you that our Harleys need heavy flywheels. Our Harleys need heavy flywheels. If you send your crankshaft, or you get a brand new Harley, and it has a set of flywheels in it, they are heavy. And the reason they're heavy is several reasons. It vibrates less, it's smoother. When you let off the gas, it slows down slow. When you get on the gas, it speeds up slow. But if you take half the weight out of a Harley crankshaft, a V-twin that has this firing order, if you take half the weight out of the flywheel, or 10% of the weight out, or 25% of the weight out, in my opinion, the only place it revs quicker is with the clutch pulled in neutral, and you go whoop-ow, whoop-ow when it's in neutral. But if you put it in gear and let the clutch out, it will die. The flywheel assembly is too light to keep it going. So if you lighten up your flywheel, you're going to start bogging. You're going to start choking in the corners. It's going to be easier to choke off at the traffic light. If you used to ride your Harley really good and you can drive away from a traffic light with your girl on the back and everybody's proud and you're proud, put you a set of lightweight flywheels in it and watch what happens. You'll stall it at the starting line. It will fall off the power band when you shift. It will be hard to accelerate. But when you're sitting at the traffic light and you hold that clutch in and you go, wow, 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 it revs fast because there's nothing to accelerate. But I'm going to tell you what, man. When you go 6,000 in one gear and you clutch it and shift to the next gear, you better hope that heavy flywheel keeps that thing spinning fast. So when you get in the next gear, it just keeps pulling hard. So in an experiment in drag racing, there's a guy on here. I saw his name a little while ago. His name's Sam, and he wanted a light flywheel for his 4-cylinder Pro Stocker. So we got Falicon to take the flywheels on the Suzuki. There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we took each flywheel and we bored this many holes in the flywheel. Each one, we ended up taking about 5 pounds out of this crank with all these flywheels. Let's see, it had one on the starter, had a rod. I'm going to try and draw this for you. It has another flywheel, then it has another rod, then it has another flywheel, and it has a center pin for the cam chain, and then it has another flywheel, and it has a rod pin, and then it has another flywheel, and it has a main, and this would be number 1 cylinder, number 2 cylinder, number 3 cylinder, and then number 4 cylinder. So there's all the flywheels. And this was where we'd put the ignition on. We'd put the starter on this end. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 flywheels, 4-cylinder engine. And each flywheel is drilled like this. And this 32-pound crankshaft, 32-pound flywheel assembly ended up going down to like 27 pounds. I think we took 5 pounds out of it. So we were at the track, and we ran side by side down the track. We were at Atlanta, Commerce Dragway, and both bikes had the same horsepower. And when we would go down the track, here we go. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth gear, right? Sam's in this lane, and he would take off good, and then we'd shift, he'd fall back about 2 bikes. Then he'd take off good. When he shift, he'd fall back about 2 bike lengths. Then he'd go this gear, and he'd shift, and he'd fall back about 2 bike lengths. And by the end of the track, we had him by 10 bike lengths. And all that was different between the two, no horsepower change, nothing changed except 7 pounds of flywheel. I don't know what the percentage is of that when you've got 32. I guess you can take 27 pounds and divide it by 32 and it'll tell you the percentage. But anyway, it was dramatic. Like you could look in the mirror. You could, not in the mirror, but you'd look beside you. Here's Sam over here. One. He's going backwards. And all you got to do is put the heavy flywheel, heavy crank back in it, and it would go, whatever acceleration you made in low gear, it would carry over to second gear. Whatever acceleration you made in the next gear, it would carry over to the next gear. And we are very fortunate today. We have G meters. We have a G meter that shows this going down the racetrack now. You got the G meter, when you take off, it launches, and then it goes down, and then you shift, and then it goes down, then you shift, and it goes down, then it shifts, and it goes down. Now, if you have a light set of flywheels, this will look same, but it falls off when you shift, it falls off when you shift, and it falls off when you shift. And it was obvious. The ET showed slower, so thank you, James, 20%. What a change 20% is. So look, I also had, and Graham's on here watching, Graham was at LPE, and they built me I think it was a 588 V10 Viper. Made 700 horsepower at the tires, all motor. And I had a stock flywheel in it, and I had a stock 308 rear gear, and I had the steel flywheel, the cast iron flywheel that came with it. And we took it to the drag strip, and I got it to go 10-0s all the time. So I bought a Hayes aluminum wheel that was my 40-pound wheel. I took it down to 15 pounds. And I put the car back together, and I cranked it up, and it was so smooth. 10 cylinders, man. Think how many power strokes I'm getting with 10 cylinders. I'm getting bang, 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 bang while I was idling. I wasn't like the Harley going bang, 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 bang. I mean, I'm going bang, 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 bang. And a V10 sounds really weird, especially when you got a 5-1 on each side. And the tuning and the firing order is so amazing on it. But what I learned, listen to me, what I learned, is I took the 40-pound wheel out and put the 15-pound wheel in, and I go, wow, wow, wow. I mean, it revved up like a nitro car. It revved up like a pro stock car. Went to the drag strip, and I was leaving it, when I was going 10-0s, I was leaving at 5,500 RPM, and then I would swap feet. And it would just go and pull hard. Well, guess what? I put that 15-pound wheel in it. I go, take it up there to 5,500 and took off with it, and it goes, and I went 1060, and I couldn't fix it. I couldn't drive it. I hated it. But when you put it in neutral, it goes whoop-ow, whoop-ow. And when you go to the traffic light, you sound like you had a pro stocker. You sound like you had an IMSA car. Whoop-ow, whoop-ow. So I went home in one try and put this back in my car, and I still own this thing. Paperweight, 15-pound paperweight. I went 10-0-0 next time to the racetrack. I went from a 10-0-0 to a 1060, and went from a 1060 to a 10-0-0, and I only changed this. And I was like, wow, what did I learn here today? So then S&S hires us to develop the S&S Pro Stock V-Twin that used Matt Smith and Hector and Ryan Ayler and all those guys they have them out there running in the NHRA. And I think S&S sold probably 100 of those engines, and we sold like 32 Pro Stock bikes. We sold 16 of them turnkey, and we had a special crankshaft S&S made for us, and it was called an 85-pound inertia weight flywheel assembly. Now, the crankshaft, I think, I'm guessing these numbers from my memory. I think they were 32 pounds. And we had one that was the lightweight 32 pound, and we had one that was 32 pounds, but it was called an 85 pound inertia weight. Flywheel looked like this with the rod pin here. And it was, if you turn it sideways, it was extra heavy right here. And it was balanced out really nice. And it was so much faster with the 32 pounder with the 85 inertia versus the 32 pound with a 72 pound inertia. And this was math. The inertia was math. But I'm going to tell you, I'll look back and see all these comments. And look, I see on here, everybody wants lightweight cranks and they want light flywheels. And I understand why you do if you have a V10. But it ain't for drag racing, it's for road racing. And let me tell you why light wheels are good for road racing. For road racing. Road racing motorcycles, road race cars is because we want it to do everything fast. We want it to rev fast. We want it to slow down fast. We want it to do all that. And I'm going to tell you about a lightweight set of wheels. It changes speed fast. If you rev it up, it goes whoop-ah. And when you shut it off, it goes whoop. When you put a heavy wheel in it, it revs up, whoa. And when you shut it off, it goes, whoa. I know I got weird sound effects, but if you listen to NHRA and you hear the guys do the burnout, I remember when we would run ours with the heaviest wheels we could get, Angel would come out of the water and it would be going, wow. I mean, that thing would just stay running. You couldn't cut it off. It was like, anybody remember modified production cars where they had 268 small block V8s, 283s, and they had two 660s tunnel ram. They were little tiny cubic inch engines, and they had no two-steps, but we had 60-pound flywheels, and this is how they would launch with no two-step. They would go, one, bah, and they take off. And they could shift a second with the front wheels off the ground, and because the 60-pound flywheel would keep it going. And when they would cut it off, this was just a habit they had. The car would be going, wah, bah, 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 bah. They'd switch it off, and they'd go, oh, click, click. That's how they cut them off. So this Tech Talk 119 is all about sound effects. Now, think about it. The least amount of cylinders you have, and the more you are about where your power stroke is, the heavier the flywheels you need. So when you guys take and you send your crank off and you get it drill full of holes, you get it windowed on your Harley, you're slowing your motorcycle down. It revs up faster when you put it in neutral or you hold the clutch and it goes whoop-ow, whoop-ow, and it sounds fast. But when you take off, it dies between the shifts, and you need inertia when you only have one firing stroke per 700 degrees. If you have two firing strokes and 720, one at 405 and one at 315, lightweight flywheels will die. This, rev it up, pop the clutch, it goes, and then you take off. Makes it bog. I'm telling you, drag racing, the guys that use lightweight flywheels and lightweight clutches and lightweight pulleys and lightweight balancers, they have enough power strokes and their firing order is good for that. But I'm gonna tell you, there's a lot of guys out there like me with my Viper that you could go so much faster with heavy wheels than you could with light wheels. I proved it, and I'm not talking about just a Viper. I'm talking about every kind of deal. Now I'm gonna tell you, the guys that put this kit right here on their V-twins, this is a twin cam setup right here, okay? We'll figure out how this works in a minute. I'll get it figured out in a second, bet. This is live, y'all. This is not rehearsed. We'll get it in a second. Just because it's all backwards. That's why I can't figure it out. There we go. Harley did a great job of this. I'm going to tell you, this right here, a heavily engineered part. It's very heavy. Think about that, how heavy this thing is. I mean, it weighs a lot, and it bolts on the end of the crankshaft. This is a flywheel. They call it a compensator, but it is part flywheel because this unit smooths out the uneven firing. the engine, again, over here, it has 405 degrees between power strokes and 315 degrees between power strokes. And that gives us a really rough running deal. And if we run a Pro Stocker, for instance, we don't have a compensator. All we got is just a gear or a pulley. And we think it's because it'll help us rev up fast. But if you ever give it a legitimate back-to-back test where you can put some heavy weight on it, it doesn't rev as fast in neutral. It doesn't rev as fast on the two-step, but it will go faster down the racetrack. So just want to tell you, over 10 different kinds of vehicles, Suzuki's, Kawasaki's, Vipers, V8s, single cylinders, twins, Pro Stock Harleys, Pro Stock Suzuki's. We have tested this on 10 different style vehicles, and we always went faster with heavy flywheels. Now, look at this right here again. What I think I know, only. You don't believe it, you read on the internet, you drive, you set records with lightweight flywheels, and you set records with no compensator. That's great. But I'm just telling you, you ought to give this other deal a chance. Now, Harley did a good job trying to get rid of some weight off the motorcycle. They weren't trying to make the flywheels lighter. They weren't trying to make the compensators lighter. They were trying to make the motorcycle lighter. So how they made the motorcycle lighter is they lightened up a bunch of parts that weren't moving. They made the cases investment cast where they're really thin everywhere through the cross sections. They made this part, the compensator, they made it thinner right here. It's 300 thousandths thinner than the twin cam. And so they break. Almost, if you got a Milwaukee 8 and you haven't ever broken your compensator, you're really lucky. Your clutch slips or you drive it like an old man. But if you out there beating on it and you buy a clutch that changes it from a nice slipper clutch where the clutch slides around and it sucks up parts, it saves parts, this might not break. But if you are locking your clutch up, you're going to break one of these. And I've run out of time now. I wasted a lot of time on that. But let me say something really important. The stock Screaming Eagle or the stock twin cam compensator, they spent millions of dollars over it, decades, and it's a very highly engineered part. And since it's so strong and so thick, this part doesn't break. Also, this has got a softer surface finish. It's not as brittle. It's thicker here, 300 thicker than the Milwaukee 8. You can see it. You do not need an aftermarket compensator for a twin cam. I don't care, 99, 03, 05, 06, 16, 15. These things are great. They're a little bit soft on the finish, so they smear and they wear down a little bit, but listen to this, they're expendable. They are disposable. A tire is supposed to wear out. A clutch is supposed to wear out. A compensator is supposed to wear out. This, if you have to put a new one in every 20,000 miles, that is awesome. So when people send me emails, they send me notes and messages, they say, I need a new compensator. I only got 28,000 on my bike. Well, the compensator ain't supposed to last 100,000. It's not supposed, the tire, how long does your tire last? 2 tires can wear out a compensator. If you wear out 2 tires, you probably ought to buy one of these. $400, buy you a new Screaming Eagle compensator, tough as nails for your for your twin cam. For your Milwaukee 8, they lightened this thing up. They made this a little bit lighter part. It looks identical to it. They tried to make it where they put more oil on this part so it wears less. And also, let me tell you what Harley Davidson did. They make this for the twin cam. They also, pretty sure they got a different vendor to make them for the Milwaukee 8, and it is smaller. And also, they got tired of replacing them with warranty with these smearing over. And people complaining about them smearing because they're supposed to. It's like saying you're mad because your tire wore out. Well, quit doing burnouts and quit leaving rubber going around the corners. Your tires are supposed to wear out. Just like your clutch plates, they're supposed to slip. If you didn't have a clutch and it didn't slip, you would tear up everything bolted in front of it and behind it because your clutch doesn't give. You need it to give. Hey, anybody old enough to remember old top fuel cars, no clutch? No, hardly anything. They had to smoke the tires from the starting line to the finish line to let the engine run because there was nothing to give. The tires gave. Now, look at a top fuel. They got massive clutches that slip for seconds down the track, and then they lock up after everything's going fast enough. But you got to have a clutch, and you got to have a compensator. Now, you guys can run a solid one because they're cheap and available, but let me tell you something, man. They get rid of a lot of give. It's a compensator. Guess what? What's his name? The guy over at Moonshine said it perfect. He said, a compensator's job is to compensate. Compensates for a lot of this jerking and slapping and popping and banging. I mean, these things are inside of your primary air and they're going. Because when you have an engine that looks like this, where it fires every 405 degrees, every 315 degrees, this crankshaft is going around, it's stopping, it's hauling butt, it's stopping, it's hauling butt, it's stopping, and this thing's right here slips onto your crankshaft, and it's going like this. When the engine's idling, this piece is jerking and slapping and jerking, and if you get rid of this and go solid, or you get rid of all these parts and you go solid, that piece that goes on the crank, this piece, all this, is still going like this. So now the chain sees that, and the clutch sees that, and the transmission sees that, and all those parts that are used to going forward and backwards, and they're living off of these ramps. They're actually living off of these ramps. Stay together, please. Stay together, please. Stay together, please. But when you go solid, there ain't no more of that. It's just jerk it, jerk it, jerk it, jerk it, jerk. Your crankshaft pulley turns into a jackhammer, and it jackhammers your clutch basket apart. It jackhammers your transmission apart, and it jackhammers the belt off your motorcycle, or the chain, or the sprockets. And I'm preaching to the choir. I know. We make a billet part. This is not a commercial. Okay, it's a commercial. We make a billet part for the Milwaukee 8. It's made out of crankshaft material. It is so tough that it will not break. But these lobes still smear, but it will not break. And you may have to buy a new one every 20 or 30 miles, 30,000 miles, because they smear. But you want a compensator. And it also adds weight to your necessary flywheel inertia that's required to make a V-twin engine run where it stays rotating instead of starting and stopping like a lightweight wheel will on a V-twin or a single cylinder. Okay, I preached it hard. I'm back. I'm going to say thank you. I'm going to say I was way too long. Wow, over 35 minutes. God bless y'all. Thank you all for watching. You can tell I feel better. I'm more passionate about all this stuff. And it's not for me to sell something. It's for how many things I tore up. Listen, you guys, I tore up a lot of stuff. I wrecked a lot of parts. Set a lot of records. Set a lot of records on how many things you can blow up. I set a lot of records on how you can go fast. And I'm very thankful for what I learned. And right now, I'd like to share that with you. So please tune in next week for Tech Talk number 120. And if you have questions or if you have comments, please give me feedback. Follow up on messaging me here or Instagram or my Facebook page or the Star Racing page. I will answer. And I'm thankful for you. And may God bless y'all. Have a great night.